How good is Mojo Mania Scenario Pack? Is Heirs Numenor, gosh, I need to learn how to say Lord of the Rings names, indicative of how difficult the game is? And does Gambit and Rogue combo work for Gambit's signature ally? We're going to talk all about that today in our Reddit reply. We haven't done this in a little while, so I apologize for that, but I'm excited to get back into it. So let's dive right in and talk a little bit about Mojo Mania. This person is looking if they should buy Mojo Mania, right? They're looking to buy a scenario pack and torn between this and Kang. Now, really quick side note, you should probably buy the Green Goblin scenario pack first if they haven't done that already, because I love that scenario pack. I think it's fantastic. So, but that's just a quick side note. Now, they say they're primarily a solo player. If that matters, it absolutely does. Kang isn't really made for solo. You can absolutely do it, but it's not as exciting solo as someone like Mojo is. Mojo is not bad. It's not my favorite scenario pack. I actually like Spiral and Magog more than Mojo in that pack. Now, Mojo's not bad. I just like those two more. I think they're a more interesting design. But definitely go with Mojo Mania over Kang. Now, I know a lot of people like the Kang scenario pack, but it really just makes more sense in a multiplayer setting than a solo setting. All right, this next one talks a bit about Gambit, the rogue ally, and molecular acceleration. This has been talked about a bit, or it's kind of like known in the community, but I don't think we've talked about it too much. We probably should, but it's about the timing of it and putting in the rogue ally. So the general gist, that in case people don't know, is when you play Gambit, right, you have charge D card, which you could place one charge counter here. Now, if you wanted to play Rogue, you reduce the cost of her by 1 for each charge counter. So by putting one on, she becomes a 3 cost ally. Now, the question is, when you play Molecular Acceleration, you do the Hero Interrupt and you place a charge counter on there. Does she actually cost 2 then? And thus you can play her for, not for free, but play her with just using Molecular Acceleration? Or do you still owe 1 more cost because of the charge counter? And this is kind of hotly debated because the way that they have officially ruled is on this this part from Alex. When was this? I don't even know when this was, but it's under the Gambit section. It's under question 2. If Gambit is intending to play Rogue and use molecular acceleration, does this change? I'm sorry. Does the charge counter it places reduce her costs? Meaning she can be played for 1 less, right? And they say if Gambit intends to play Rogue while spending molecular acceleration, then yes, the charge counter from molecular acceleration would account for when calculating Rogue's cost, right? So basically, you could play her for just molecular acceleration after flipping up, so it makes her like a really cheap ally to play. Now, the argument is on page 10 of rules reference. This is the new rules reference. If multiple costs for a single card or ability require payment, those costs must be paid simultaneously, right? So this is kind of the big argument that they kind of have in the discussion here, because they're kind of ignoring their own rules, right? As this individual says, and a few other people say that too, that they're basically ignoring the rules because you're not actually paying the cost simultaneously, right? If there's only 1 charge counter on, then you have to pay 3 costs simultaneously. When you play the 2 costs, it's not happening simultaneously then, because then you're putting 1 charge counter on. So it's kind of interesting when they talk about this and discuss it, because there's some argument that the hero interrupt kind of takes precedent and it happens, but then if you're playing the card, then you're not paying all of it at the same exact time. It kind of goes back and forth, and it's really kind of weird and confusing. So it's one of those things that I want you all to let me know how you've been playing this. Personally, I feel like the intent was there, that this is supposed to, like, when you're playing this card, it's supposed to interrupt and place the charge counter there. But realistically, as the rules are written, that's not how this is supposed to work. So maybe they'll update in the future. I don't know. Maybe they'll change it and flip the other way. I'm not 100% sure. But I thought it was kind of an interesting tidbit. And it's something that I've seen people play both ways and no one really talk about. So I feel like it was, worth mentioning. This last one is in the Lord of the Rings subreddit, and they're talking about Heirs Numenor cycle. I'll get it right one time. Of difficulty and scenario going, or how difficult it is basically moving forward. They talk about how, their play rate and all this fun stuff. So for those that don't know, because maybe you weren't a part of it, Mirkwood was the first cycle that happened, right? You got the core box, then the Mirkwood cycle kind of expanded past that. And then you had the Dwarf cycle with Khazad Doom, which is really, really, really fun and interesting. And the next one was Against the Shadow cycle that starts with Heirs. And this cycle in general, is a bump up in difficulty. Now, if you have the extended card pool, it's not too crazy, right? It's not too difficult, but it is a bit difficult. Ringmaker to me was kind of on par with that. And then Angmar Awakens kind of bumped it back up. Now, Angmar is when they start doing the repackaging stuff, right? It's kind of interesting to me that they skipped this difficulty bump in here and then went to like what I would consider the second difficulty bump. Now it doesn't mean that like what I'm saying is absolutely true, that some people thought Angmar was on par with the rest. I thought it was a difficulty bump, but maybe that's because I'm just not as good of a player with this. But yeah, so anyway, it was interesting when they repackaged everything. They started with Angmar, because that to me was like two difficulty bumps. But they did come out with the ally pack, or the what was it, the hero starter deck packs to help out. So, but they mentioned about how difficult all this is, and they're really kind of struggling. And I think this person says it best, that the one that they're having issues with, Peril and Pelagir, was average, but when you're going through progression, it's rather hard. So if anyone's going through progression at this time and going through this, it's super difficult in progression, as they say. It really is. It was a big struggle for a lot of people. I kind of cheated and I just pulled cards from future decks, and it actually makes this cycle like pretty easy, right? Not easy, but much more manageable, right? It wasn't that difficult overall. But this is a section that I think a lot of people were thrown off by when they were playing this game in progression, because it's just the difficulty spike is there, and it is real, and it is tough. And I wonder how many people it kind of took out of the game. Unfortunately, it'd be kind of interesting to learn about that. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting that people are still doing this progression wise, and it's kind of interesting to see that cycle is still being picked up and played, which is really cool. And I hope that they eventually reprint all the stuff for Lord of the Rings, not just the couple of cycles that they're going to do. All right, this is a little bit shorter of a Reddit reply. I didn't want to go too crazy with it, but if you want to see previous Reddit replies, including what Marvel Champions hero has the best win rate, check out this video right here. It's a pretty good one. It breaks it down on Reddit. It's not gospel or anything, it's just Board Game Geek stats, so it's kind of interesting. And if you do me a huge favor, hit like, hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. See you all next time.